I'm just going to let you guys know that while I was getting ready for this video, my dog refused to get out of the bed. So I had to put the blankets over him because I didn't want a messy bed in my video. So if you see the blankets come alive, it's just my dog. So I've been reading some books lately that I really want to chat about, but I'm not quite ready to make a full-on review for them because I want to read the full series of both of these before doing so. And there's also one honorable mention that I just didn't really want to make a whole video about, so I'm going to throw it in here. So long story long, I just want to tell you about what I've been reading lately. As a bit of a curveball to this video, I will say that I recently watched the Fallout show as well, and I absolutely loved it. If you're watching this video right now and have been kind of frustrated by shows like Wheel of Time or Rings of Power or The Witcher, or any other adaptation from recent years, then please go support the Fallout show. Obviously, it's not some little indie production or anything, but I think we need to put our wallet where our mouth is when it comes to people actually doing a fantastic job with adaptations. See what I mean? But for real, these guys stayed true to the source material, and it literally warms my cold, dead, lifeless heart to see people make something that means so much to the fandom and make it accurately and with love. Even if you haven't played the games, just go support it. I promise you that if you like fantasy and sci-fi, you're gonna have a great time with the show, even if you don't have any knowledge of the games. My mom absolutely loved this show, and you think she's played the games? No, not at all. Matter of fact, there was one day, I think it was like the day after the show came out in its entirety, because it all got released at one time, and I was at work. It was like 9 in the morning. And I texted her and I was like, hey, you have to watch this show. You're really going to like it. And she was like, oh, is this the thing like about like the games or whatever? I'm like, it is, but don't worry about that at all. You don't need to know anything. Just watch the show. She's like, all right, I'll try an episode. So she tried an episode or she started an episode at like 9 o'clock, and I expected her to just kind of like try one episode just for me and then never do it again. I got a hold of her at like my lunchtime, whatever, like 1 o'clock or something. And I'm like, hey, what'd you think? And she's like, I'm on episode 6. So, yeah, even if you don't like the games, you're gonna love the show. But anyways, that's my soapbox. I just want to talk about Fallout and just say what a great job they did, and I'm so happy with this adaptation. It really looks like video game adaptations are hopefully starting to get good. Knock on wood. I really hope that they really stick the landing as they continue to make shows like this, and I'm really excited for season 2. But let's talk about what I've been reading. Let's start with Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is a book that I pushed out for so long because I'm really into like grimdark assassin fantasy, and I was really bummed when people told me there wasn't any of that in this, really. I kind of thought, like, what's the point of having an assassin character if he's not doing any real assassin-y things? On top of that, I had heard that it was really slow, and people who know what I like to read told me that I would most likely find it boring, and it probably wouldn't be for me. So I just never really thought about picking it up. I always assumed I was going to hate it, and I think that's why it's so important sometimes to step out of your comfort zone and try new things, even if you think you won't enjoy them, because I loved this book so much. I was at work one day looking for something to listen to. I forget what I think I just read something for the podcast, and I had a few days of just time to read whatever I wanted. And I remembered that Gabe had bought this book a while back after we chatted with Madison Goodyear in a Creators Corner episode. And he actually DNF'd it after the first, like, I don't think he even made it through the first chapter. But he didn't like it at all. And I knew that was going to be the case. But when I started this book, I initially thought I'll just listen to the first chapter or two to see what it's like. And if I don't want to listen after 15 minutes, I'll just move to something else, or I'll turn on a YouTube video or something. And after the first couple chapters, I just wanted to keep going and going and going. And I just got hooked. I got sucked into this world. And I don't know if people typically sell this book this way, but if they don't sell the book this way, they need to. I would tell people that this book is exactly like the parts of Kingkiller where Quoth is just kind of doing stuff. Like, you know what I'm talking about, where Quoth isn't necessarily hot on the heels of the Chandrian. Like, he's not really doing some of the more like in-depth main story stuff, but maybe the chapters where like he's running an errand for someone, or just exploring the town, or he's on the road and talking to people he meets along the way. Those moments, first of all, those are some of my favorite moments in Kingkiller, when he's just kind of doing side quest stuff that occasionally ties back into the larger story. And I feel like that's really what this book is, and I loved damn near every second of it. There was very, very few points in the book where I was like, okay, let's get this going. I really enjoyed pretty much every second of it. Not to mention that it's written in a pretty similar voice to Quoth as well. And maybe it just feels that way since it's also in first person and has some really pretty writing, like some kind of poetic prose sometimes. But it really felt like it's in a similar vein to Kingkiller as far as the writing style, and I guess just the way the events are portrayed, and seeing everything from this character who maybe isn't clued in on everything. I don't know, it just all worked really well together to make it seem a lot like Kingkiller to me. And I think that fans of Kingkiller would love this book, for sure. So, kind of what it's about, if you don't know, basically there's this prince's bastard. He's a bastard son named Fitz, and at the beginning of the book, he is dropped off at the king's stable master's house by his stepdad, who essentially tells the stable master, I'm done taking care of someone else's kid. You need to take him back to the prince who fathered him. Give him back to that guy because I don't really want anything to do with him. And he dips out. He goes away, and we never see him again, really. At least not in the first book. And Fitz is kind of adopted by this stable master. I wish I could remember his name. He has a really interesting name that's hard to pronounce. So I can't quite remember what his name is. Somebody in the comments will tell me and I'll feel like an idiot. But he's adopted by this stable master before being taken to the king and pressed into service as a student to the king's assassin. I feel like that kind of happens later on. There's like a bunch of stuff that happens before that, but that's like the main plot thread of this book. And around that and in between that, there is a ton of stuff that happens. Again, a lot of it is just Fitz doing stuff and figuring out life. Like, he's learning how to live the life of a noble. He's kind of privy by accident to a lot of court intrigue and political maneuverings, and kind of his story kind of gets interwoven in with that in a lot of ways. He's not really seen as a noble. Like, he's definitely seen as a bastard and kind of looked down on. It's really interesting because some people look down on him a lot and then other people don't at all. And I feel like it really shows you the character of the people he's interacting with. Like there's two princes besides his father, and I can't. Verity, is that one of the princes? Oh my god, I feel like such an idiot. One of the princes is really nice, and one of the princes is basically a total asshole and hates him. And I really liked the interactions that he had with the nice prince. I feel like they had just a great relationship. It doesn't all happen at once, but throughout the book it kind of coalesces into this really, really beautiful thing. But the one that hates him is constantly putting barriers in his way, and Fitz has to get really creative about like how he gets around that and how he does it without like angering the nobility, because he doesn't really have any ground to stand on when it comes to, standing up to some of his bullies in the court and stuff. And so he kind of gets boxed around a bit. But then there's the nice one, who has kind of a fondness for him. And like I said, you don't see it right away, but he does try to help Fitz when he can, and those interactions are always the best. But as I read this book, I didn't entirely know if I wanted to jump right into the next one. I was like, this is great, I'm having a great time, but I don't feel like I need to immediately go to the next one until I got to the final few chapters. And there wasn't really a major twist or anything, but it was kind of the King Killer effect where, you get to the end of the first book and you're like, I just want to spend more time here. Like, I don't want the book to be over yet. I still feel like kind of sitting in this story. And that's how I felt at the end of the first book. I have a couple other things that I need to read before I can read the next one, but I'm definitely super excited to go on. And I forget what the second one is called, but I'm definitely excited to jump into that one. And I want to do a trilogy review when I finish it all up. And I think I might even maybe I'll read the second book and do kind of an update thing like this one when I finish it. So maybe you'll hear from me then, but I just want to say I loved this book. I had such a great time with it. So from that book, I didn't have much time until I had to start the next book for the podcast. So I needed something really short and easy to read. So from there, I went on to read my honorable mention, which is Jade Shards by Fonda Lee. This is a very small book of prequel novellas from the Greenbone saga that obviously take place before the events of the main trilogy. I really don't have much to say about this one other than I really loved seeing the musings of like a young Hilo and Wen, and then also seeing Ait Madashi's a young Ait Madashi's interactions with Andon's mother, and then of course you see Shay and Lon and all those other characters too. They were all really fantastic, and there's even little author's notes at the end of each story. I think there's four stories total. And you get a little thing from Fonda Lee just saying why she wanted to write this little extra piece of character building and world building and whatnot. So those were really fun to read, and it was just cool to get insight into what Fonda was thinking about when it came to these characters' early life. One last thing that's kind of funny about this is I didn't even realize this had come out. I was super bummed that I totally missed the hype train on this, because I read, what was it, Jade Setter of John Loon when that came out, and we did a video on that, and I really enjoyed that. And I had no idea this came out in like November or something. I was kind of bummed that I missed it, and I missed the special edition, what are they called? The Subterranean Press edition. I was bummed that I missed that. So I don't know, maybe I can get my hands on that somehow, but so far I haven't found one. So from Jade Shards, I had to read something for the podcast. I forget what it was. I think it was Will of the Many. I had to read that. And then I jumped into the Powder Mage trilogy. And this is one that I've also been putting off for a long time. And multiple people have, told me that I need to read it and that I would really like it. And even with those endorsements, I didn't really know what to expect from this book. And honestly, I had to reread the first chapter or two a couple times because it really makes you hit the ground running initially. But I was quickly hooked by the first in this series. I think the setting is so interesting, with it being kind of a Napoleonic time frame, or like, I don't know, since I'm in the US, I think of it as like a Civil War era time frame. And it's so interesting introducing guns into a magic system and just kind of seeing what happens. And if you can't quite picture what this would look like, think Mistborn Era 2 if you've read that. And that's probably a pretty close approximation. Currently, I'm about halfway through the second book and loving every second of it. I think that it is a fantastic follow-up to the first, and I'm really loving every single character's POV, which is usually pretty rare for me. Usually I'm kind of like, there'll be 2 out of the 4, or maybe even 1 out of 3 that I really latch onto, and the other ones I just kind of put up with. But I would say every single POV, like I'm never bummed when it switches to another POV. My favorite though is Taniel, who is the son of a military commander named Tamis, and he's kind of Tamis's right hand man, being his son. Like Tamis puts a lot more faith in him, puts a lot more responsibility on him, and kind of gives him like the good missions and like the honorable missions and stuff. But Taniel is an incredibly capable marksman and powder mage. He's super interesting and complicated. He has an awesome companion named Carpol, and she is this cute little redhead chick who is also mute and has some really cool magic that's very different to what everyone else has. She will essentially prepare and work on a spell for large portions of the book and then finally release it in a massive and often chaotic moment later on. And it's so cool. Taniel is also a drug addict, kind of. Powder mages are able to snort gunpowder, and it helps sharpen their senses and can even send them into like an awesome battle rage if they ingest it in a certain way. And apparently it feels really, 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 really good. There's some other drugs that he does, but that's mostly book 2 stuff. And those parts of the book are really awesome. Honestly, I love it when books have their own like just weird drugs and stuff that are in world for the series. I always enjoy that. But as far as the story goes, all you really need to know is before the book even starts, Tamis has taken control of an entire kingdom by staging a coup against the king. And when we first meet Tamis, he basically has the royal family, including the king, in shackles, and his military forces are taking control of the major city. He inscripts the help of investigator Adamat, who helps him uncover important information he requires, and when his son Taniel gets back from a mission, he sends him out to do various things as well. We also get the POV of Nala, I think her name is. I do the audiobooks, that's what it sounded like to me. But she is the king's son's nanny. She doesn't really come into play too often in the first book, but she is a fantastic character as well. The most important thing is that all of these POV chapters are fun in their own way. Like I said, I never felt bummed when we moved from one to the other characters' POVs, especially because the story flies by at such an incredible pace and the chapters are super short. So even if there is one character that you favor over the others, you know that you're going to be back to it pretty soon. And it won't be too long until you've done the rotation of characters and are back to the one that you enjoy or whatever. The magic in this book is a little understated, especially in the first book. There's definitely things that a powder mage can do, and I feel like I understood most of the rules. But for Brian McClellan being a student of Brandon Sanderson, it's definitely not as out there in the open as Sanderson's magic system. It's definitely, like, you see it, you see them using magic. It's not uncommon for it to happen. But I feel like Brandon Sanderson's magic system, the story is built around the magic system, where this is the story being built around the world and characters and just the plot, and the magic is kind of taking a little bit of a backseat to that, but we do see more of the magic in the second book. I'm definitely going to be doing a full review for this as I finish up the trilogy, because there's so much to talk about regarding it. And then I just found out recently that there is a second trilogy. We were talking to Fantology, Steven from Fantology this last weekend, and he was saying the second trilogy is even better. So I want to jump into that as well, because it sounds like it has a lot of the same characters that are in this first trilogy. But for now, please read this book if you've been pushing it off. I pushed it off for so long, and I'm kind of glad I did, because I get to read it now. But yeah, it's something that I wasn't sure if I was gonna love, and same with Assassin's Apprentice, and I'm having a great time. It's absolutely fantastic. I think you guys are gonna have a great time with it. You're gonna love the characters, and the pacing especially is so damn good. You'll just want to keep going and going and going. But definitely let me know if you have read the Powder Mage trilogy, because I would love to talk about it either down in the comments or on Twitter or Discord or whatever. All right, well, that's pretty much what I've been reading. I was worried that because I wrote the notes for this video a few days ago, and I was worried that I was gonna have read something else by now, but at the time of this recording, I'm still on the second book of Powder Mage. So yeah, that's really all I've been reading, although I am about to read the Silver Blood Promise by James Logan. That comes out tomorrow or tonight at midnight. I'm recording this on the 6th. So that has probably already come out by the time that this video comes out. And from the description, it reminds me so much of Lies of Locke Lamora, and has even been endorsed by Scott Lynch himself. I think that this might really scratch the itch that I've had for a new Gentleman Bastards book, and I'm really excited to dive into this one. There's so much hype around it. Not everybody, but like a lot of people on Twitter are talking about it. And so I'm gonna finish up the second Powder Mage book as soon as I can, and then jump into that. Also on the horizon for me, just in my personal reading, I don't know if we're gonna do anything on the podcast about it, but on the horizon for me is Doomsday Patrol by Jason Anspach. I've never known how to pronounce his last name, but he also co-wrote the Galaxy's Edge book that Gabe and I really like. This book looks like a ton of fun. Basically, from what I understand, it's Marines from the 80s that stumble into a kind of portal to hell where they have to fight against crazy monsters and zombies and have to survive until they can find a way out. It sounds It sounds like a ton of fun, and from what I understand from the description, they also kind of stumble across a tribe of like female warriors of some kind that find them and team up with them in hell and helps them fight against all the monsters and stuff. It just sounds like a fun action movie, and I'm here for it. I need that right now, honestly, with all of the heavier stuff that I've been reading, like Assassin's Apprentice and even Powder Mage, honestly. I could use just like a fun action movie book. So I'm looking forward to that. And then for the podcast, we are doing a drunk discussion of Fourth Wing with our friend Sam. I'm not entirely sure if we're going to live stream that or if we're just going to record it. I'm leaning towards live streaming it. And we'll let you guys know in about a week what we're going to do. It'll be on a Saturday. If we're going to do it, it would be on the 18th. And it would probably be like 5 or 6 p.m. Puget Standard Time. So if it's going to be live stream, it'll probably be around that time. Not entirely sure yet, though. And then the following week, we have another Dresden Files episode where we're talking about one of my top 3 favorite books in the series, Cold Days. So lots to look forward to. We also just recorded an episode with Steven from Fantology Podcast for a Creator's Corner. And then a week from the time that gets posted, we will also have Adrian Gibson on, host of the Fan-Fi Addict podcast, for a Creator's Corner as well. So make sure that you hit that subscribe and notification button to keep up with when all of these episodes are coming out. As always, you can reach out to us on Twitter, Discord, or Patreon, where you can watch episodes live as we record them before anyone else on YouTube gets to see them. You get that if you back us at the Mistborn tier or above. And if you want to win a free trilogy of your choosing, go to the description of this video and watch the video for the Fantasy Files bingo card. Follow the instructions there, and if you fill out the bingo card using the Fantasy Files episodes and videos from 2004, we will straight up buy you a trilogy of your choosing. It'll all get explained in that video if you want to check it out. But that's going to be it for me today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.